Thank you. Well, I really do feel I'm among friends here, so thank you very much for inviting me, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here and talking to you today. I'm only going to give you a very brief introduction because I know you're really here for the big speakers, so let's just get on with it. It seems strange in a way to be in a conference about automation, because as I think Juan Carlos pointed out right at the beginning, you operators have been automating for decades, and certainly I've been looking at automation for decades, so I know you have. But really, that automation has been taking place in silos, in domains. And I think, again, that was illustrated by Juan Carlos when he said, well, we have SON. So the mobile, we typically find this when we're talking to operators. Oh, the mobile network is very well orchestrated. Oh, yes, all our fixed access stuff, that's got a lot of automation in it. Core network, not so much. But the thing is that now, I think when we're talking about zero-touch automation, to me, what that means is end-to-end automation. You've got to automate across those silos and domains. Treat the network as a platform, or as Peter was calling it, an ecosystem. It's going to be an ecosystem of components, of suppliers, and you want your customers, as Peter rightly pointed out, your customers to come in and be able to do what they want on top of your ecosystem and build the networks that they want. And this is going to require a much more joined up kind of automation. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're talking about zero-touch automation. It suddenly becomes such a hot topic. I think that, and really, this joined-up automation is key to all the kinds of things that operators want to achieve: new revenues, much better cost management, and this delighted customer experience that I think, with customers getting exactly what they want, as Peter was describing. And I think there are two other factors that are contributing to this sudden burgeoning interest in zero-touch automation. One is that tools are improving and becoming very, very powerful. It's becoming possible to do things with automation that weren't possible in the past. And that's only going to become more and more improved as a result of applying sort of AI and big data. So in addition to those powerful tools, virtualization has been a real catalyst as well, because virtualization, as Juan Carlos pointed out, virtualization gives you the opportunity to run VNFs anywhere in the network. So your core VNFs might move out to the edge, and your access network VNFs may move to a more centralized location. And then you can start, that really begins to break down all those domains. And the organizational silos that we've had in the past. So it makes it more possible to think about having an end-to-end orchestration. And of course, you can't achieve any of this without massive automation. But virtualization is actually a very small piece of the carrier puzzle at the moment. Far more difficult is to drive that automation into the physical network. And I think we were seeing an example of that also with the Verizon Colt SDN to SDN APIs. Really that needs to be driven into the automation needs to be driven into the physical network. And overall, there's the spectre of 5G. Now, 5G to us is an end-to-end network. 5G isn't just about new spectrum. It isn't just about new radio. It's about having an end-to-end network. It very much is aligned with this ecosystem or platform vision. And one of the big use cases is network slicing. Various speakers have mentioned that this morning. And now BT and Ericsson have done some very interesting modeling around network slicing, and they have concluded that you can get a 30% increase in OPEX and a 30% increase in revenues, not OPEX. You don't want an increase in OPEX, of course. A 40% decrease in OPEX as a result of applying network slicing over a single physical infrastructure, as opposed to building different physical networks for services, or indeed trying to operate one big multi-tenanted network. Now, we haven't yet done that level of detailed maths, but we think at Analysys Mason that actually network slicing is going to transform the future of connectivity and really change the economics of the connectivity business. But you can't have a sort of two-speed, and I think that there's going to be this kind of two speeds of slicing initially. Operators themselves, if they don't fully automate, are going to be stuck providing what we call capacity-based slices. Now, these are going to be very large, and they're going to be relatively static and relatively undifferentiated. I mean, they will be differentiated to a certain extent, but not to the level that Peter was talking about on a per-customer basis. And we think that, you know, those, or you're already seeing those, some of those slices being set up today. They're not going to be very many of them at the capacity-based level. It's kind of a wholesale play. And then you will have what we call a whole raft of service-specific slice providers, some of whom may well be operators themselves, but they will also be the public cloud providers, there will all be specialist IoT vendors, they will be companies that can take those capacity-based slices and further slice them and differentiate them using SDN and NFV for their for specific communities, vertical sectors, and indeed for individual customers. They are going to need to have highly agile end-to-end automation. They're going to need to be masters of automation because these slices are going to be very dynamic. I think it may have been you, Juan Carlos, that said, you know, these slices could end up lasting for 5 minutes. And then in future, you know, we think very long term, the applications themselves will navigate through the network and create their own slices, very much like you're seeing this sort of serverless concept in clouds applied to the network. But that's very long term. I think what, as operators, you want to be able to capture is as much of that service-specific slice provider revenue as possible. I mean, there's certainly a business case in just being a capacity-based slice provider, but we think the value is really going to be in this middle block, and also it's also where most competition is going to be. So that's the urgency of automating end-to-end around network slicing. But then there's the question, and again, we've had a couple of speakers this morning really highlighting some of the challenges there, the organizational challenges of coming to a joined-up picture and simplifying. I mean, again, both Peter and Juan Carlos mentioned that word simplify. And indeed, Michael, you asked a question about it, which is very apt. But we're actually seeing a lot of war going on between these different automation domains at the moment. I mean, I've been talking to operators who are building SDN capabilities to disintermediate their OSS people. They want to draw a line over their legacy OSS because, as we all know, trying to integrate back into OSS is one of the biggest problems that you have as an operator. And then we've got, you know, then I talk to operators who are doing something completely different in their NFV cloud and are not even talking to their data center and IT people, not picking their brains, not sort of, you know, what can you tell us about OpenStack or whatever, just completely separate. So actually bringing those domains together is one problem. And then there is a cacophony of tools, approaches, information, data and meta models, open source initiatives. You know, I'd be rich if I had €1 for every time someone asked me whether ONAP was going to succeed. You know, should the network be orchestrated or choreographed? And then, of course, we're about to have another sort of big whammy with AI coming along and different approaches and tool sets there. So a lot to decide, you know, what should your roadmap be amongst all this that's going on. And I think there were some very interesting points that Juan Carlos and Peter made this morning. I think there is a sense in which you need to be masters of your own destiny. You need to go your own way, in the words of Fleetwood Mac. You can't wait for all this to be standardized. And one reason for that is that there is a bit of a dissonance around standardization, because of course you want some standards. You're not going to be able to do the SD. You want some kind of commonality around APIs, for example. But this is a software world. And if we look to the web scale players, they don't standardize. They can set standards like Kubernetes and so on, but they don't standardize. They move ahead because they have to move ahead. And software is something that is inherently slippery and not standardizable. I was talking to a CTO of a real leader in virtualization, actually. They have got a very good virtualized network. They've been working on orchestration for 5 years. They are a B2B player, so they're fairly small. And so they haven't got such a big problem as some operators have. But they were saying that they had an investor come to them the other day, and the investor said, "You're talking about orchestration. How can you be doing orchestration?" And they picked out the NFV Mano document, and they said, this was only standardized in 2013. Vendors only brought out products in 2015. How can you tell me that you're orchestrating things? And he said, well, we built it ourselves. We don't wait for the standards. And in a way, that is where you're going to have to be if you want to really remain at the cutting edge. Now, there is an argument, too, for saying, well, let's let the vendors lead us. But I think, Juan Carlos, you very eloquently articulated some of the dangers in that happening. Now, there was a mini-summit in... oh, good, my clock is... Either that's run out of time or the clocks. I've run out of time. OK. So there was a mini-summit in Layer 1, 2, 3 in The Hague. And I put up these recommendations then, and I thought, OK, this is a new summit. Shall I change the recommendations? And I thought, well, actually, these are still pretty valid. In order to do this joined-up end-to-end zero-touch automation, there's going to be the need for very, very strong governance, so that there are not so many different pilots, that people are not reinventing the wheel. And that goes for vendors as well. You are having to, even within your own organizations, vendors are going to need strong governance to make sure that they're aligning in everything they're doing and trying to simplify and slim down the components for automation that they're using. And then there's this big question about whether operators own their own automation frameworks, as Telefonica and Verizon advocate, or whether you are going to get a vendor in and actually just sell on top with more limited value. That's a valid business model. It does work in some geographies and in some areas, but I think we're seeing that the leaders are very much saying, control your own destiny. And finally, and again, I took this away from the talks this morning, vendors themselves are going to have to rethink their products. They're going to have to disaggregate, decompose, be able to work with open source components, with the architectures that their operators are specifying. So if you take what you were saying, Peter, and apply it to vendors for the network, it's exactly the same problem that we're talking about here, integrating into an ecosystem and becoming much more ecosystem-minded. And I think what's important about this particular event is that we've got representatives from so many different industry groups that are working on this. We've got ZTA, NSM, we've got I think there is a representative, a lone representative, Dung, of ONAP here. There's OSM, there's MEF, and so on, and a TM Forum, of course. And it's very important that you guys are not reinventing the wheel. You're talking, and everybody's talking and collaborating together. Experimentation at this point is good, but we do want to ensure that there isn't too much duplication of effort. So that's, I'll leave you with those thoughts, and then I would like to invite to the stage Sergio Pozzo from Vodafone.